like, I'm the best. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, you're saying this shit in your head. Like, it sounds so wanky.
Yeah.
But it worked. It worked. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And not just saying it in my head, but trying to feel it, like confidence, trying to get that in your head, like saying it over and over to myself before I go in, and then I'd nail that first go.
The dancer died twice, and tonight we're gonna chalk them out. It's the podcast that talks about what dancers shouldn't talk about. Connecting all dancers from aspiring to retire. We had those conversations, yeah, we're here to light the fire. The dancer dies twice.
Today's guest is someone super special. He's a close friend of mine, and I'm just going to read a bit of the bio here. So, he's a tap dancer, choreographer, educator, and creative. He is a co-creator of the Tap Pack, a production that has toured prestigious venues around the world, including the USA, the West End, the Sydney Opera House, Beijing, and Berlin. He's performed and choreographed in live events all around the world, and additionally founded the Australian Tap Dance Company back home in Australia. He's a truly diverse resume. He has a truly diverse resume as a performer, working with the likes of Tap Dogs, Fame the Musical, The Great Gatsby, Singing in the Rain, Kylie Minogue, X Factor, and Australia's Got Talent. Without further ado, guys, I'm going to introduce none other than Thomas EGAN.
Yeah,
hey, mate, how are you?
Get the whole bio.
Yeah, look, honestly, like I thought, I've known you for so long as just pretty much like mates, you know what I mean? And, obviously I was like, okay, I'm going to see if Tommy wants to come on. And I was like, I'm just going to have a little look into, being a little bit prepared and talk about your background. And as I was reading it, I was like, holy crap. Like I felt so like, not just inspired, but just just always privileged to have like a mate who's just accomplished, I think, so much in the space. And honestly, I feel like you are still growing right now into becoming this, whatever this thing is. And I don't know anyone who has the amount of wisdom and knowledge that you could potentially share with, I guess, the new generations and just, I don't know, mate, like I feel like there's so much to explore with you. We can't do that in one pod, but did you want to just give us a little brief background of like your upcoming into the industry, like as a dancer?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that kind introduction, I think. That's very kind. Yeah, so I suppose my mum was a dance teacher, so I started dancing as soon as I could walk, and I went through my younger years at the Victorian College of the Arts in high school. I also had a great tap mentor in Chris Horsey, who sort of was teaching me private lessons that, Mum, I was very grateful that Mum invested in us having private lessons with him growing up. And then also to an extent, a guy called Paul Davis, who sort of gave me some of my first gigs, like working in like a tap group and doing working as like a company sort of thing. And then so coming into the industry, basically I was doing full-time in Melbourne and with Robert Storick, who's an incredible trainer of dancers in kind of the jazz world. He does incredible technique and just has amazing life lessons and training. He also taught Jesse and Joel and a lot of my sort of our friend group. So I was doing full-time with Sally Hare, and she was from Sydney, and so I went to visit Sydney, and I remember seeing, I did this event for Tapworks, and there were all these other dancers there, and I just saw the scene in Sydney, and just I was like, I have to be in that. The scene to me at that time, there's just such a difference between the level of dance in Sydney versus Melbourne, where I grew up. So I was like, I have to go there, and I actually stopped full time, like maybe 3/4 of the way through, and left, moved to Sydney, and then sort of just worked hard at starting, like trying to get into gigs and get my name out there, and move into the industry. And at that time, I wasn't really specifically wanting to go into tap. I was wanting to be. I kept saying I wanted to be more than just a tap dancer, which, you know, we can go into that, but that why that statement's wrong. But at the time, that was what I thought. I was like, I want to be more than a tap dancer. So yeah, then I started sort of trying to book gigs, and, you know, doing the thing that every young person's doing now.
Well, and more. Like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like, we've shared the same space, you know, on, I think, couple of big gigs, you know, back in the day. It's going back a little bit now, but, like, you know, from then on, mate, like, it's just, I just, obviously, you know, catch up with you every now and then, but just to hear the things that you've been doing in this space, man, you know, even just with the tap pack alone, like, like, did you see yourself coming into, I guess, where you are right now? Was this something that you'd always wanted to do, or is it just kind of, do you feel like it was just this natural progression of things as you were kind of like exploring the space of, you know, working professionally?
I think what I am now is what I wanted to be maybe at like 16, 17 and 18, but I lost that because I really wanted to be a backup dancer. I wanted to be in musical theatre. I sort of grew to have different dreams during a period maybe between like 18 years old and about 20, 23 or something. So I don't know if I saw myself doing what I'm doing now. But yeah, I mean, it took me to, we worked together a bit on stuff like X Factor and a little bit on Tim stuff. And it took me to do some of those gigs where, you know, that was the thing I was hunting down. I wanted to be a backup dancer. That was really, that was the space I wanted to be in. And then after a little while, I think I had this realization, kind of two realizations. One, I was like, oh, okay, I've booked a few of these things now, and you sort of ask that question, like, oh, is this really making me happy? Is this filling my cup? Like, do I feel fulfilled by this? And then the other thing that occurred to me as well was, being in that space and dancing for artists and everything. I realized, I was like, I hate pop music. That's not my thing. Like pop culture and pop music and that whole space. Like, that's not my thing. And I feel like that's quintessentially, if you're a commercial dancer, like a, you know, backup artist and stuff, that's your space. You're behind an artist, you're pop music. That's your thing. And no shade on that if that's what people are into. That's not, you know, degrading that. But that's not personally what I'm into and what, you know, makes me, like, I didn't listen to any pop music. I'm sort of forcing this personality on myself that wasn't really me. But I think I just really loved the dance element of it. I loved, you know, when we went to the States and learning off Shauna Baristo and Marty Kudelka and Kyle Hanagami and Andy J and you know, like that whole world. I just loved dance, but I think the actual you know, implementation of all that stuff in the industry as a commercial dancer, that area isn't exactly, it doesn't have the things that I love. So I think it took me, circling back, I think it took me to get into that space to realize, hey, this isn't really what I actually like. And I was being dragged down the road of doing, not dragged because I loved it and wanted to do it, but I was at the time doing tap dogs and I was booking a lot of tap gigs. And then I think at some point I went, oh, this is really what I want to do. And then I just went, you know, balls to the wall on that. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Was that the time when I remember you guys were doing it in Jupiter's? on the Gold Coast?
Yes, yeah. So we went on a regional. I think I started with a regional tour of Tap Dogs, and then we had a 4-month sit down on the Gold Coast, and then we sort of were doing things. I think it was a tour in like Dubai and Singapore and Hong Kong, and yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so that was quite a while ago now. So you kind of have, you know, picked up on this, like, I guess, understanding that, okay, this is my direction. This is what sits well with me. You know, this feels good. Like that's pretty awesome to be able to figure that out very early on. I guess I don't want to say early on, because when was that? It was about like what, 2000? Was it 12, 13?
Yeah, it would have been. Maybe about maybe. Well, I mean, I suppose I'm making it sound like I did a sudden switch, but it probably happened over, you know, a couple of years. So it would have been around, you know, 2012, 13, 14, around that area where I sort of just made that switch there.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm kind of going back to sort of like wanting to know your reasons of being driven into that commercial space of being like a backup dancer. And I know you did briefly mention that, like, it was the, you know, the dancing, the choreography and stuff like that. But was there anything else that, you know, growing up, was there things that you were inspired by where you went, you know, you look at that and you go, oh man, like I want to try that thing out, or, you know, was there something like that made you kind of move into that space out, you know?
Yeah, I think always, you know, that sort of urban movement in hip hop that inspired, and music. I loved, you know, hip hop music and whatnot. So it was an easy. I still love all of that space in hip hop music, the, you know, dance, all of that area. You know, I still love it, but now I sort of appreciate it from afar, if not do it to myself. It's not a thing that I hunt down anymore and look towards doing as a career. But I think too, community plays a big part. You know, we had a huge group of friends, and we're all doing that same thing. Yeah, it's you are the sum of the 5 people around, you know, the 5 people you're closest with around you, you know, a little bit.
How much do you feel that had an impact on your success, was the people that you're surrounded by?
Probably a lot. You know, I think I think, yeah, I probably got a leg up in some instances where, you know, your friend is in the industry and they go, hey, what about Tommy? You know, I think that does help a little bit, you know, and it works in the context of being nice to everyone as well. I always say there's this gig I used to do at Luna Park when I first moved to Sydney. And it was a bit of a rough gig, like the pay wasn't all that great and was, you know, quite intense in terms of just, you know, 20 minutes on and 10 minutes off, and, you know, it was pretty full on, and not the gig that you're like, I'm living to do this gig at, you know, Luna Park. But it taught me a lot of great things, and there's people in that gig now that I see in the industry all the time that are, you know, one of them's the director of like Sydney Festival, and like that. So it's be nice to everyone, because you know, I think the people around you, I think it does. You want to work with people that you like, right? Like that's just I think that's just the nature of it. So you are going to work a lot with your friends and people that you have good relationships with.
I think, yeah, you absolutely hit the nail on the head when it comes to, you know, the key fundamental factors for like success, being successful. You know, it's not just like doing the job right. Like it's about like being professional and that, you know, comes with being nice to people. And I cannot explain. I agree with you 100% here, where I guess, you know, just seeing certain people on certain jobs where, I guess they haven't been they're not very quite established yet. And, it's, you can kind of like, you know what I mean? You can kind of tell if by the way that they conduct their business, how far they're going to go regardless of their dancing, because I think it could go the other way around where it's like, sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here, but
to jump on that thought, I was going to say, sometimes you are surprised by people, if you try and pick it. I think there's some people that do really well and you look at it and you go, I wouldn't have guessed, so like, I think
I see what you're saying. You're talking about like kind of like social climbing as well in that sense.
Well, I'm not even thinking specifically about social climbing, because I suppose there's two ways to think about this conversation too. Because I was going to say before about development as well. It's like the actual skill you have in dance, and then you using that skill to build yourself as a brand and a business and a working dancer. Because there's heaps of incredibly talented dancers, right, who are just amazing, that anyone on any level thinks is just an incredible dancer, but they're not necessarily, the world-renowned, dancer that everyone knows that is booking heaps of gigs and whatnot. So it's kind of like, I think Bobby Fox said it to me once, like you have to wash one hand with the other. You've got to work on your business side as well as the like personal development of being good at what you do as well. And that was what I was going to say. It's like, you must have felt it too. Like when we were all dancing together, our circle of friends, like we would have nights out and we would be like dancing in front of the mirror, doing combinations that we've done. I think that I think I started pretty low down in terms of my skill level in dance, but because we were dancing so much and just training all the time, and we were all pushing each other forward, I think I got so much better so quick.
Yeah, well, mate, I have you to thank for that as well. When we both went to train in LA, that was you, and I was like, yeah, of course, I want to come too, But it's like it's always looking back when you sort of realize, oh wow, we were in this like vortex synergy of just a lot of like talented people really actively pursuing the same goals, and that's why it's like you forget, because we were just so, I guess, in that space of just constantly trying to thrive. It's only when like it's moments like this when I look at your resume, I go, oh wow, like I forget that like we have had so many, I guess, very what do you call it? I guess, just talented people. We had some quite, a lot of talented people in that space there. And I think, like, I don't know if it's luck.
Going on to that thought about us going away to the States too, like the first time that I went before we went together, I didn't actually go to class for the first 3 days because the first day I couldn't find the joint, and then and it was also so nerve-wracking. Like, I mean, this is before, social media, MySpace was around when I first went. Like that's where social media was at the time. Like, and I had seen videos on YouTube of that Jesse had shared with me of like Donna Baristo and Marty Kadelka, and so going over there was the social media thing, and I didn't even have a smartphone, so it was just nerve-wracking. I had no idea what I was going in. It was really like Jesse and Joel having gone over there a few times, and that was why I had the goal to go over there. Social media thing sort of developed just after I kind of went there for the first time. So the first 3 days, like, couldn't find it the first time, couldn't find it really the second time, but I think maybe I found it and then was like, I'd been searching on my bike for 3 hours and I was like, I'm exhausted, I'm going home. And then finally, after the third day, I went, but I just did one class and was like up the back, like super nervous. And then so I had to build that confidence. If I had a friend to go with, it would have made a massive difference. So like circling back to that whole, relationships are really important. They can boost your confidence. They can push you forward. They can there's so much they can do.
Mm. I'm going to take it right back again because I just had that thought pop up. But it was just on the topic of being able to, what you said. I think you said Bobby Fox said this. You got what do you say? You wash one hand
wash
with
one
the other.
hand with the other. Yeah.
I don't think dancers actually really get it that there is an entire business side to it, and like, obviously you're a choreographer. Like, I have friends who are choreographers, and then, you catch wind of word, and people are always talking, people are always watching. And I don't think this is what dancers understand. Like you said, mate, I've had those gigs as well. Those gigs where it was very, very, very difficult for me to get through. But had I done a very bad job with that would have just kind of, word would have traveled. And they would have, because people are always like, oh, they want to know, how's that new dancer, know, oh, how they like on the job. And if I had a bad attitude, without a doubt, like, people would have been like, oh no, he's difficult to work with, or whatever it is. And then that's kind of it, it's like that word of mouth sort of stops. And I swear, like, this is a part in a dancer's career where they sort of struggle to really break in and integrate and now really start to become, connected and intertwined with everyone, because it is very deeply connected, isn't it?
Between people. Yeah.
Between people, yeah. I've always felt that. Like, I felt very connected with the people as much as the work and stuff that I had been doing. But
I mean, the comment about washing one hand with the other came up because I suppose the statement that I put out there in this conversation was, I felt that too many people concentrate so hard on all the other things related to a dance career. They're out getting new headshots every 3 months. They're making a new video reel. They're out at, getting this other thing and a camera workshop. And I was like, if they just focused more, and I felt myself as well, focused more on the actual dancing. I was like, if you're incredible, like if you just have amazing skills, then it won't matter because everyone will just want you, right? And I think to an extent that comment works, right? But no one will know about you unless you do at least a small amount of work on the other side of, your career and promoting it a little bit,
Of course. Yes. Totally agree. Yeah.
So I think I disagreed when he said it at the time, but I think now I wouldn't be quick to assign a value to how much you should place on each either. And if I had to be, I think you need both. But I would say first and foremost, you don't want to be promoting yourself when you don't have a great product to sell yet. So that's one thing. So obviously this is weighted more in the sense that you really need to just make yourself like practice so much that you're so good at what you do. And then it's working on the other side of things. Yeah.
I'm actually, this is completely separate from my dancing, but as like a startup founder, and then just sort of like figuring out this space, and I'm kind of diverting a little bit, but like you just mentioned about like focusing on the product. And I think that's really important. You're right, because there's no point talking about all this other business stuff if you don't have that dancing element down pat, right? But I think it's for those people who are like you said, there are so many talented dancers, right? But I have witnessed super talented dancers, just their career just has gone down the drain because of certain things that have happened outside of their actual their dancing, and
then
it
we
is
all
a
know
little bit
a
unfortunate.
person that someone looks at and they go, oh, why that person? Like, I don't think they're very good. There's always a bit of that going on as well. And I don't always agree when people say that, because I think dance, like, skill is a bit of like a spectrum. People just have different things to offer on this spectrum. You know, I think there is a level to get to, but at a certain level, then it just fans into this big spectrum of people just have different vibes and different things to offer. Yeah.
Do you feel that Australia has a lot to offer, but we are pigeonholed into becoming this one particular type of product within our industry? Or do you feel as if though it's quite, you know, it is quite broad. It's just, you know, are we actually, I don't know if we are. I don't think we are. So I'm still answering my own question here. No, what do you think? What do you think?
Do you think we get pigeonholed into being one way, like one type of product? Is that what you mean?
Totally. Do you feel like that? We get sort of like geared up into primed up to be this one a certain way because there's so much like so much work that's, you know, limited. Like,
yeah, I would say that you know, we're all working towards working in Australia, and there's only X amount of choreographers in Australia, and maybe there's not a huge diversity in their styles and the type of thing that they do. And so therefore, when everyone's working towards being, you know, being right for those certain choreographers, then yeah, maybe we do become sort of a similar product. I suppose my mind is always going towards, you know, I think the States is kind of the pinnacle for what we do. And there does seem to be a lot more diversity in there. And I'm not using that as in diversity, the buzzword. I mean actual like diversity in like age and ethnicity in style as well. You know, like different types of dancers and yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of, yeah. It would be nice if there was a little bit more of that in Australia, but I think I do see people getting mad about it as well. You know, and look, I'm going to share with you a little bit of like you know, saucy sauceness. But because, you know, I feel like I've been around enough to sort of know what the demand is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a real cookie cutter kind of type of like, if you want to do commercial dance in Australia, it's like, well, you got to look this way, you got to dance this way. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's this sort of kind of formula, right? And this is just a little personal thing that I have, but it's a bit controversial what I'm going to say. But I've always been about what the job demanded and try to fit that as best as possible. And as commercial dancers, I felt that, like, you know, a lot of it had to do with how you looked. A big part, right? I wouldn't go as far as 50-50, but depending on the job, sometimes it can be, right? And it just baffled me when I would see talented dancers that didn't have that other part of their, I guess, business sorted. And I just always, it made me just go, like, I even had conversations going, hey, like, what are you going to do if the job is going to ask you to have a six-pack, you know what I mean? And which a lot of the times it can happen, you know, within our industry. So I think this is just more so like, I guess I just want to shed the light and the reality of what our industry like demands. Hey, Alicia. She could have jumped on as well, actually.
Yeah. She's got lots to offer.
But yeah, like I just like maybe I'm just having a little bit of a vent here. But
I don't think what you're saying is that controversial. I think in the commercial world, it's, yeah, 100%. Like how you look is a large portion of why you get booked, and I don't think that's a bitter outsider thing to say either. I mean, it just literally is. You get booked as the hunky shirt off guy, and I got it from a choreographer too. I remember them saying to me, "Hey, your body looks really good at the moment," and I actually did nothing to me. I didn't think about it, and then one day, would have been ages later, I went, they were saying like, keep that up. Like they were giving me, this is what you'll do to get more work. I was just, my younger years. And I just didn't pick up on that they were actually giving me a hint as to how I would get more work. That's how I look at it now. I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, I think I had a big hint very early on in my career.
I think there's, I mean, to take this point, like this idea here as well. I think it's really damaging, like for people's mental health and beauty standards and all of these things. I mean, it's just. I think it can create all sorts of issues around unhealthy eating and the way you look at your body and there's a whole bag of things that are wrong with it. But that's kind of how the industry is. I'm not saying it's right. I just think that is the way the industry is still. And coming back to that whole idea of diversity too, I think there's a lot of diversity in the physiques of people on stage as well now in the States.
Yeah,
I don't think that's made its way to Australia yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. I haven't seen it as well. But yeah, in the States there definitely has. Would you would you think it would be sort of, I'm sure, I know that there are so many dancers that kind of, I guess, end up sort of giving up on their careers because they base a lot of their their experiences from gathering from the Australian industry. You think it's better for dancers like that to maybe be like, hey, you know what, that's this is just the Australian market. Like, there are so many talented dancers that come through every year, and it's a shame to see these dancers like growing up, training their whole lives doing what they love to do, and then to be all of a sudden after full time just being like, well, all the best. You know what I mean? I know there are programs out there, I get that, and that's awesome. But it's like at least, when maybe I'm thinking back, I don't know what it's like now, but I feel like we've got to just sort of figure it out on our own a little bit here. And even this whole, I've been gone through this whole transition period of like, life after dance and who am I if I'm not dancing, because I've done it for so long, and there's just really not much guidance. And in the past, I've tried to talk to other people to seek kind of bit of insight into this whole thing. And that's when someone said, to me, the dancer does twice, and I guess, that's really sort of started to come up in my world right now.
What does that mean to you? The dancer dies twice. Like what does that mean to you?
Oh, to me, man, it's just it's the end of doing the thing that I have loved to do for a very, very, very long time. Just the expression of I guess, of me in the absolute sort of, as much as I can give, like just being on stage, being a performer. Obviously, that's the obvious, but there was a loss of identity, 100%, and I went through that before, like earlier. It wasn't even just, I haven't considered myself retired just yet, but even when I was going in between gigs, I didn't know who I was when I was in between gigs. It was like, who am I? I'm not dancing right now. I'm not doing a gig. And I would struggle like to go back home to the Gold Coast from Sydney, and I would almost have my like head down, a little bit ashamed, and kind of being like, oh, like, what am I doing right now? And you know, when everyone's looking at you going, oh, hey, when's your next show? Sort of, not, they don't say when's your next show, but when that's all they've known you as well, it was a bit of like a, what do you call it? I experienced, me personally, a bit of a, you know, there's a bit of friction there. There was like this kind of, I don't know, and that's just me. I'm talking about just my own personal experience, but that was earlier on. But I think, you know, now in more recent years, I've found, you know,
there's a really important something I think you said there. I think we need to normalize that. I think the question, like this whole thing that you were saying, this cycle of like, you do a gig and then you get off it and then you're like, who am I? What am I doing? Like, I think everyone goes through that. I don't know anyone who hasn't talked about that. And I think we need to normalize that, hey, what do you, like when you're out at an event, we need to normalize not saying to people, hey, what are you doing at the moment? Because I think it's kind of like loaded question that it becomes this like, oh, I'm working on blah, blah, blah. And then everyone talks about their gig and it becomes this mentally unhealthy conversation around. It makes one person, you know, a bunch of people over here feel like shit because they're going through that feeling of oh, I'm off a gig, I'm in between gigs right now, and I think there's some I think the dance industry and the performing industry as a whole, I think needs to have some more mindfulness around just what's happening in the sort of journey of everyone's careers, these ups and downs, and we need to be more mindful of each other. And I just wanted to put in that little thing. I think it's important what you're saying there about this kind of sort of peak and trough that you go through, because I think everyone goes through that.
What would be a better conversation, do you think, that would fill that space instead of like, oh, how you going? Like, you know, what gear are you on?
Yeah, well, that's what it becomes. You know, it's like, who's working? What are you doing right now? Maybe people don't mean it that way. But, you know, they're not malicious, but it can become a sort of sour, environment of this. The way people are always just like, oh, what are you doing at the moment? I don't know, but maybe ask how someone is, or I don't know, what's exciting them at the moment. I don't know if I have a great solution for it, but I think there's a conversation that needs to happen around that everyone feels these massive peaks and troughs, and how do we be more mindful to those around us in the industry, because it's not just it's them this time, but it's going to be you soon, and they're going to be talking about their gig. So,
Wow, man, yeah, I feel like you're right. There's gonna always come a time, right? However, in saying that, I feel like you've kind of now, I guess, extended this, I guess, evolved this part of your artistry, and I feel like you've now created this new identity, which is sort of like, you know, turned into this. So maybe the dying part for you might not necessarily come until, you know, I don't even know how long, because I feel like with what you're doing in the space with Tapman, it's like, you know, it's kind of, you could do it for a while. I guess when I refer it back to me with doing commercial dance gigs, like being, you know, doing that high intensity stuff, man, it's a familiarity with my own body, to be able to push it to those sort of limits. And I think being injured recently and not being able to tie my shoes was something that made me really depressed. Not because it was like, oh, I'm not the dancer anymore, but it was this like disconnect with my body that I had. And that feeling of not having that was a loss in kind of knowing who I was. And there was a big low and dark place, but it made me realize, geez, this thing matters a lot to me. So I was like, I owe it to myself to have to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to be the most miserable person on the planet if I don't do it. And so I think, I think there are a lot of people who are going through some kind of, I guess, challenge right now to be able to, make that next break. And, this is why I wanted to get your, I guess, insight into what this industry is, the demand of it, what is expected, what to do if you can't figure it out and get through. What other avenues are there? Like, it's amazing that you're providing, the space for other potential like workers, and you're creating your own thing, which is absolutely brilliant, man. We need more of that. So, coming from that space, which is, you're the right person, like, to those people that are needing some kind of, I guess, just that right little bit of guidance, what would that be? What would that kind of thing be?
That's a huge question.
That is huge.
What is the meaning of life? Go.
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
No. Okay. So, So I think the question, as I see it, is like, what advice do I have to, making a career out of dance, that may not look like the typical career, or extending it, or yeah,
man, yeah.
I also, to preface my answer to that, I find not enough people are sort of noting that the industry has changed, and that I think myself, I'm 35, and what if I have something to offer in terms of like being a young, I was once young and I was moving into the industry. I think my advice is more limited than than I would like to give it credit to, or generally what I see, a lot of older choreographers and dancers in the industry, giving advice out. I think there has to be a little bit of maybe the word's like humility with that, because the industry's changed. Like, it's so different now. Like, social media has made it this completely different place. So I think that my advice, there might be some value in it, but also like to all the young people, I think they're incredible, and they're going to be the next generation that's running the industry, and it is a totally different space. And I think that if someone's telling you the only way to do this is X, I think take that with a grain of salt, because it's the industry right now is completely different. It is so different. But my advice, I suppose my story to a point is that I did a couple of auditions, I think, like Hot Shoe Shuffle and Singing in the Rain. I was hoping to book those. That's when I was still auditioning for stuff. And I didn't get into either of those. And at the time I was starting my own gig. And I think from there I became very kind of steeled in this vision that I was like, I'm just not going to let someone else control what I'm doing with my career and what I'm doing with my dance life, I suppose. And so I really wanted to create my own stuff, and that's why I put so much attention and so much sacrifice and so much love into something like the Tap Pack, because I wanted to create something that was my own. And that extended also to not going for like casting calls for ads and things like that, because I just felt, for me, it was a lottery. Like, I was just turning up hoping I get a $20,000 ad all the time. Which is great, but I was like, this is just, it's, instead of taking control of my financial future, it was, be like buying a lottery ticket instead of just taking control of my financial future and building the money that I wanted, and I felt the same. It was like, I'm hoping I get this ad or this big job, a bit like a lottery sort of thing. Even though I understand there's a skill involved in doing those things, so it's not quite like a lottery. But I wanted to take control of my own career and create my own things, and I think that's more possible than people would think. So, like, my advice to young dancers trying to break into the industry is, I think, first of all, try and feel out the industry and learn what it's like, learn what you like, what you might be interested in. Don't just assume that you know what it's like, and that what you like right now is what you're going to be in love with still, like 10, 20 years down the track as well. And sort of go on a path of discovery. And I would say, you don't have to go where I went in terms of like just, I'm not going to audition for anything. But maybe when you bum out of the audition and you feel terrible, because inevitably you do the audition, then you feel awful afterwards. At least you can go, well, I'm going to go back to the thing that I have been doing, which is building this my own thing. So I would propose build your own something, whether that's a YouTube channel or your Instagram account or a show that you can do with 4 friends that, goes on a small circuit. Something that is, something that you love, that you can put time and energy into, that makes you feel fulfilled. And then you could still audition for the things that you want to be in and do. But it's very different when you bum out of that audition, then you go, cool, I'm back into this other thing. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's something helpful that I've found. That's been meaningful to me, is to be in control. As there's still a lack of control there. I'm still at the whim of the audience. The audience could be like, I hate your show, I'm not going to it. Like, that's still a possibility. But, it's, I've got something that I love that's meaningful to me, and I've made that my thing, as opposed to waiting by the phone.
And if you find yourself like you're not loving the thing, then perhaps it's like maybe it's like time to sort of probably explore different avenues, or I don't know, because look, I can only relate this back to my own personal experience, but I've caught myself in positions doing the thing that I love to do and then not loving it as well, the thing. You know what I mean? And finding that balance for me was always kind of like an art in itself. Did you ever find that hard, or do you feel like because you had created something on the side, it was easier to have that sort of balance with like financial and just that passion balance? Like I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it is normal to have moments of that passion sort of just wanes a little bit. I think that's normal. I don't. Maybe there are people that are just sitting there, just burning from their face at all times, like, I want to make this. I don't know. Maybe there are people.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, but I think it seems personal. Like, personally to me, it seems reasonable that that passion's gonna just wane a little bit at times. I always think things work in peaks, and I personally work best in peaks and troughs. When I'm feeling great, I go really, really hard, and then I try and be consistent in the times that I don't feel inspired, and I just try and find some piece of joy in something that I'm doing, or just being consistent, having a routine, and being like, this is the one thing that I've got to do today. I'm not feeling that inspired, but I just got to do this. So I think it's completely reasonable that you would feel a little bit less passionate. I mean, if you're doing it and you're just not enjoying it anymore, and it's making your mental health really poor, then I think there's a case to say that maybe it is time to think about something else. What else interests you? Or a break. I love that.
Yeah.
I thought about it myself with like what's his name? Roger Federer. He took that like 6 months or something off tennis, and then he came back and he was so good. Like, I mean, that's a physical thing too, but also he reported that just he felt so amazing as well. I wonder if there's, not that I've tried it, but I've thought about it. Like, is there a period of just off time, just allowing some space to, take back in inspiration? I mean, I'm not feeling uninspired at the moment. This year, I'm like let's go, let's do it. Like I'm ready to go. But I do try and always get the balance and have the times where I'm like, oh, just let it sit for a bit, allow some space there as well. So
yeah, it sounds like you've really got that the foundation right, because it's like you said, if that's not going on, that's fine, because you've got this other thing that's like building, and you know what I mean, it's in the process, and that gives you a lot of fulfillment too, and it sounds like it's quite very rewarding, and it obviously it has paid off, and that's really awesome. And I was like, what am I doing to myself? I'm done. I'm retired, right? And so then I told my insurance, and I'm like, look, I'm just filling you guys in. I'm not going down this path anymore. And they're like, okay, well, before you do so, I want you to go see a sports psychologist, right? So I was like, I'm like, sure. I mean, what have I got to lose? I mean, they're paying for it anyway, so why not? So I've gone into this place, and I got the idea real quick. They're Olympians, all up in the up in the room, in the space, and I was like, I'm like, they're going through that same thing that dancers go through. They've done this thing, and they've put so much blood, sweat, and tears for so many hours of their freaking life to now go all of a sudden. What now? I got the gold medal, I got the bronze, silver, whatever it is, and then it's like, I guess I start coaching, like, you know what I mean? And so I totally understood that space.
Sports people, like, they probably still need more. They would probably say, oh, we need more. We need more mental health services and stuff to help, like programs to help them after sports life and everything. But I think dancers just have nothing the whole time. Like, sports people, from my understanding, and when I've met or seen them, they have great self-talk because they've been with like a team sports psychologist who's like, this is what you need to say and do, and that's part of what they work at as their, on-field thing. I've always thought like we probably need something to happen for ourselves. Like, a simple discovery for me was like in COVID, when I was doing the TAP project online. So I was teaching these like tutorial things online. It wasn't live streamed. It was just me filming the video and sending it out to people. And because I just made up the combination, and I was like pushing myself to make it really difficult. And then it was really the first like few weeks, I was just in total like rage quit all the time, and just because I couldn't get it in one go. Sometimes I would make a mistake in the thing, and I suppose I had a bit of like, I did class with Anthony Morigiato, and I don't know how many takes he does a stuff. He probably does it in one. So I was like, I need to be that good. I should be able to just do it in one go. But I found this method where, before I would go into the combination, I would just be telling myself, you are awesome. You are so good. You are like really skilled at this. You are, so much. You've done so much. Exactly right. I'm the best. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, you're saying this shit in your head. Like, it sounds so wanky. But it worked. It was amazing. And not just saying it in my head, but trying to feel it, like confidence, trying to get that in your head, like saying it over and over to myself before I go in it, and then I'd nail that first go. And that's incredible. That's just one thing I made by myself that probably a sports psychologist could have told me when I was 20, and had that in my toolkit for forever. And so I feel that dancers need that. We need that type of stuff.
I feel like we're now in like an interesting space of kind of like mental health here as artists, and I want to kind of, just share a little bit of my little story of facing, absolute difficulty with doing the thing that I've been doing for so many years. Became like it wasn't second nature to me anymore. I started to get stage fright.
Yeah.
I got severe anxiety, and this is during Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
Right? I found myself not like understanding what the heck I was doing. It's like, imagine you were driving a manual car and then all of a sudden you forgot how to change your gears. Like everything's muscle memory. Yeah. I remember going, what? I'm like, why am I scared right now to be going on stage, And I took anti-anxiety medication. I had to, because it was affecting my job. It was affecting my work. And it got so bad to the point where I couldn't get the choreography anymore. I couldn't I just couldn't the anxiety just took a massive grip on me, and it crippled me, and I froze. I never experienced freezing until, how old was I then? 29, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Never. It's never in my whole life have I ever froze. It was like, if I forgot the choreo, it was just like, okay, there it is. It's back.
Yeah.
But I went through this
this way you just go into no man's land. Yeah. I know.
It's like when you've had it.
Yeah, I had it. I can remember specifically, the very first So You Think You Can Dance audition. I'd had it a bunch, and I'd had it at the So You Think You Can Dance audition in the kind of first preliminary rounds, like the non-televised ones that you have and you just go. I remember I had
top 100.
Hey,
yeah, top 100.
No. In the the non-film bit, how you kind of went in to an audition, and you sort of auditioned before you went into the actual filmed audition part of the thing. It was often at a court or something, and they just had it was kind of like they just want to see what you're dealing.
Gotcha, yeah.
And so
yeah.
That, and then I think we did. Oh, it wouldn't have been you actually. It was Jordan Pollard, myself, Zoe Black, and I'm so sorry I can't remember the fourth person. But we did the gig with Tim-O-Matic in this stadium gig, and I think he was sort of pitching to these American music people. And I had been having this blanking problem, and then I went out. I was afraid that it was going to happen when I got out there, but I felt confident, went out there, nailed it, and was like, I hope that's gone. I even said stupid thing to say to your boss, but I was like, oh man, I'm so glad I just nailed all of that, because I've been blanking lately, which is a stupid thing it was. But so I had that. And then, it was. I found it was this whole, and I've had similar. Same with speaking. I used to when we first did the Tap Pack, I was so confident. I would just make up stuff. I would just totally make things up. And then, maybe 5-6 years ago, I just started getting I'd start going over my. I never used to go over my script, but I would go every time. I would go over my big monologue, because I was, and I would get into this place where I'm not even speaking English right now. This is ridiculous. It's a total mental game, because like you said, it's like driving a car. It's muscle memory, but you're just having this anxiety about performing, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's just I remember the distinct moment of having that freeze, and I hear comedians talk about bombing, and a complete bomb. Actually, you know what? No, it happened one other time before that. And I'm going to tell you, do you know what I think it was for me? My focus was elsewhere.
Yeah, right.
It was kind of maybe the driving the car analogy is great, because you kind of you just stop thinking about it and you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then it was just something, or it might have been something, someone, I don't know what it was, just kind of threw me off guard. And I realized I didn't even know the choreography, but I for some reason thought that I did.
Right.
I don't know how, but this little thing has crept in my head over the years. And I think it's got to be some kind of defense mechanism, right? Because, maybe I've become a little bit sort of in touch with how I am as a dancer now versus how I was. And maybe I'm not as in tune and I'm not as good anymore. I'm not keeping up with the rest of the class. So maybe it's become this thing of sort of coping mechanism over the years slowly, right? It's slowly. Maybe I didn't nail something properly, but I just tell myself, it's all right. You're good. You got this. But then that develops over the years when you don't correct it of complete in denial. And now it's just confidence, right? Walking in there and I don't even know the choreography. And I'm like,
yeah, let's go.
Whoa. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, how far have I been listening to that thought to now come to the place and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know the choreography. I don't know it.
Yeah.
So that's been my little journey, and I'm like, I need to address that thought a little better and go, wait, no, I don't think I have it. Let me really kind of look into this.
And how does meditation play into you solving that? Because I know you've been absolute meditation guru at one point in your life, but because I find mindfulness, or specifically mindfulness, has been really helpful to solving a lot of issues that I had with sort of thought processing in dance. But I think you maybe think differently because you had different experience with meditation.
Look, I've got my own personal journey when it came to all of that stuff. There was a particular period in my life where it was benefiting me in many ways. But, life experiences sort of led me and scared me to meditation because I found some profound experiences within myself that, it is hard to sort of kind of put into words, but it scared me.
Right. Yeah.
And so I decided to put it all aside, and that's just my journey, right?
Yeah,
I think to answer your question though, yeah, of course, definitely, because it always made me connected with my breath. Yeah, I think that's what's most important. Was that doesn't matter how crazy everything was. I'm always in tune with my breath. It doesn't matter if the world's burning. I'm connected. I'm connected with me right now through my breath. So then through that, there's this steadiness, and I could pick up the choreography again if I lost it. So maybe I should get back into it. But But at that particular time in my life, though, I did turn to anti-anxiety medication, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's a bunch of dancers and artists out there who have had to perhaps turn to these sort of things. But I always knew it was temporarily. That's just for me. That's just for me, right? Because I felt that it was, and I can only speak from my own personal experience, but I felt that there was an aspect to myself that was being robbed, and I couldn't express my performance to the full capability of what I remember it being. It was just sort of a bit this sort of like, it was just a limited capacity, but it served its purpose. I got through that little rut, and I think once I came off it, that's when I decided to take a bit more time into looking into these things that have led me to have such high anxiety, and that one of those thoughts of like telling myself, I've got this, was one of the big things that I needed to sort of go, no, I don't, no, I don't. But let me actually get this choreography right now.
Yeah.
But going back to focus, man, you get kind of, you go through, like you said, you go through this, right? You go through this.
Yeah.
These lulls, and I don't want to say I got bored, But yeah, I think maybe bored's the right word. I got a little bit bored.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Did you ever find yourself bored, man? Just like, you're just like, well, I'm doing it again, mate.
Yeah. I think at some extent, when you're really deep in a season, and what I found was like when you're going on stage and not like from the dressing room to you being on stage, you flatlined, like you haven't. No, there's no difference. Like there's no heightened or any sense of arousal to get on stage at all. I think that's a major issue. So I had at one stage, I can remember I'd just be standing side stage and just, going out and putting lots of energy in, doing my job and everything. But I can remember, just going out and just being like essentially flatlining in what was happening in here, maybe not appearing that. And I felt the performances weren't that great, and that I think that would check out, and so I started to put more pressure on myself to go. I want to make every performance has got to be special. This has got to be go out there, have something to gain out of it. There's something to gain out of there. So, yeah, I it's not that I'm standing side stage super nervous every time, but there's a definite change in my arousal level to get out there, and that's also, my friend Mark Hill, he went to NIDA, and one of the cool things about them doing the course at NIDA was they were with like a psychologist or like a counselor or something, and they were talking a bit about like as a performer, you go on stage and you're just in that absolute, adrenaline and a big state of arousal. It's no wonder that morning you wake up and you're just absolutely trashed. Like that's totally reasonable. So even though there's negative side effects to that, I think that's ultimately better for my performance to be, and then I'm not bored. I'm not getting bored either in that way. Yeah.
You're talking about approaching every show going, what can I give to this performance that is going to be...
Wow. What can I find? What can I bring? Let's get in show mode. Let's get up there a little bit. Whereas if I'm sort of just going into it there's definitely there's some shows that I've done, where you're just like, okay. And then boom, you're on stage. So that person is gone for me. I'm like, I don't want to be that. Just like the arm stretch and the thigh stretch and deep heat. They just put deep heat. I was like, it's warming up. Like, just put deep heat on my thighs and then just go out there. Silly.
What would you say though to people who are struggling when it becomes repetitive and they can't find that thing, that makes them go, all right, now I'm going. I feel alive and motivated, and to bring my 100% again to tonight's show, because I personally, man, I was trying to find that thing, and some nights I found that thing, other nights I couldn't. I struggled, but it sounds like you've sort of found this something that kind of, it doesn't matter. It's like, I'm going to give, that part of me every single time.
Well, yeah, I don't, I thought you were going to say 110% then. I don't sort of believe in that. I think,
No.
It's, but there's something to give. Maybe, I don't know, there's sometimes I'm playing
I get what you're saying.
myself. Actually, it was really interesting watching that Michael Jordan documentary where he was talking about, he said something that I was like, I do that too. Where he was talking about, like, sometimes he's playing a game in my head, like he would imagine that other player had said that he couldn't make that shot. And so he's like, it didn't happen. He was making it up in his head. But like sometimes I wouldn't say I'm making up scenarios in my head, but like incentivizing myself. So at one stage I was like, exercise. I'm going out there for like to feel that, exercise, move my body and feel my body in space and kind of, I don't know, which is kind of, it sounds super weird. You should be just focused on, what you're doing. But sometimes when you're out there, you're doing something you've done 400 times. You're not going to be, maybe there are people that just totally, they feel exuberant, all that 400 times, but you're not going to be that way. You've got to find something. Yeah.
I call BS.
Yeah.
I call BS. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I felt like I couldn't talk about this stuff at work because it kind of, it just shook people up, man. I'm going to say it, dude. I freaking felt like I felt like I was not in control of my body. I just felt like I was just going, and I was just sort of back here, just seeing myself go through the movements, and I'm gonna I'm gonna put it into perspective, and this kind of really scared me, right? So there was this card game that we used to play before the Bodyguard. We played it like, bro, I'm telling you, I don't even know how many times we played that card game. Do you know what the scary thing is? None of us remember how to play it.
Yeah, right.
What? Dude, none of us. We got together and we're trying to figure out how do we play this card game. Yeah. We played show after show after, like...
But you couldn't remember it. Yeah. Yeah.
What is that? I don't get that. What part of the brain is doing that?
So you're just totally in autopilot every show. Oh, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but none of it. We couldn't figure it out. You think one person might figure it? I know. Maybe it was the person who brought that game into the show. They would remember it, but for the rest of us, we just
right.
And that's, I don't know, man. That kind of scared me. I don't know why. It was frightening for me to know that you could just sort of so not be, I don't know, conscious. I don't know if conscious is the right word, but But anyways, I feel like this. I want to try to sort of wrap it up, but I feel like we've kind of gone into this whole other space that I want to talk. But I'm going to bring it right back to the
tap much. If you want to,
what's that?
We haven't specifically talked about tap. If you want to finish on a note of something about tap.
Well, the thing is that I normally finish off is a message that you want to share, right? But I feel like you already kind of went into that earlier before. But sorry, before we go there, what I was saying was with the whole sports psychologist thing, right? I went into this guy's office ready. I was completely. I believed in every part of me. I was like, I'm sad because I'm coming to the acceptance of ending my professional career, and I'm going through a grief period, and this is why I feel this way. I'm very much aware of it. I'm going to come into this session and I'm going to talk to this guy just about what I'm going through, and it's hard. I love this thing so much, and it's coming to an end, and I'm sad.
Yeah.
Within about 15 minutes, man, he dug something out of me, and I was like, there was a part of me that was so mad because I realized I was so upset because I felt like I could still do it. Even though I couldn't walk, even at that point I couldn't walk properly. Yeah. He dug it out of me because there was that, what if, maybe thing. And I was like, I hate you so much, man. But the fact that he did do that, I couldn't, it was like, now I couldn't run from that fact. So, so that's why I'm here now, but I feel like we need people like that on that level to be able to, help out freaking dancers, man. Come on, it's hard. Yeah. I get sad, man. I used to have dreams about not being able to perform anymore, and I was really sad. And I would think back to all those moments of being on stage, dude, and I
had the same. Yeah. COVID. There was this hint of an idea in my head that I was like, am I pushing something that I need to stop? And I thought to myself, what if I did just absolutely pivot? Because I started in COVID doing a Bachelor of Science, majoring in biology. So I was doing that and loving it. and not found this new thing, because I knew I always loved that. That's why I went to do the degree. But I was sort of like, what would it look like if I just, totally pivoted towards this? The sort of that idea came to my head, and I was feeling really low because I think I was genuinely considering it, maybe. And then we did a show at the Adelaide Fringe Festival called Human. And I mean, the show was put together really quick and everything, but I got to tap with Peter and Bree and Richie and Hilton, and I was out in a gig, and then I think that sadness that was there, I just went, I know what the sadness is. The sadness is because I am leaving this. That's why, and so that's what made me realize I really do want to do this, and I can still do it. So it's, I imagine that with sports people, the thing is like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. And I have to deal with the sadness. Whereas, I don't know if it's sad, but, I don't.
At that level.
Yeah, I can still at that level. Yeah. And so
have
my career, so I was like, well, keep doing it, yeah. So I understand that sadness you're talking about.
And you can be happy for the new thing that you're moving towards, and still be sad about it at the same time. But I was trying to have these conversations because I was having these feelings, but it was always difficult to sort of, like, I mean, I got answers. Sometimes it was like, nah, I'm not sad at all. I'm so happy about this new thing. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know why I don't believe you right now, but I was like, maybe it's just me.
Which friend you're asking, but I know a lot of people. There are heaps of people in the industry where I don't think they actually love it. They're there because they're good, and I don't really think they love it. So when they leave it, it's just like, oh yeah, it was fun. For them it was, yeah. Whereas for me, I'm, I feel like I'm an audience member, fan, and practitioner, and the whole lot of it, of this thing, let's say of tap. I'll go.
You're the full spectrum.
In the tap festival to go and learn, just as that person. I'll be in the tap festival teaching. I'll be performing. I'll go and watch a show. Like I'm every part of that kind of link, and I think you need to be if you want longevity. If you kind of like it, I think people need to figure out whether they like the idea of being a performer or whether they actually love the thing itself.
But do you think you can get to the place that you and I have been to, breaking into the industry purely just because it's the thing that you kind of are kind of just good at? Like, don't you think there's a bit of a fall off where you can kind of sort of find those dancers where you sort of go, oh, their heart's not really in it, or I don't know, or maybe like,
I just think some.
You think you can go that far? You think?
I don't know. I think some people were. I don't know. They're just really good at it. They're really good at it, but they don't have much. I think sometimes, or they just have a very specific set of skills that makes them very hireable.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think there's something. Alicia and I have talked about it a bit too. There's something to be said about. I think we talked about it for last year. We were like, we need to separate our identity from. I'm a dancer, and my happiness is kind of derived off having gigs and what I'm doing with my dance. Like we need a separate thing that we're, this is who I am, and that person does all of these things, and that character is made up of a bunch of stuff, and it doesn't need the dance part to be happy, because I think it ultimately leads to it just leads to pain. But in saying that, I think if your idea of being a dancer is only, I'm doing it on an arena tour, dancing behind Pink, the doing of, like, I think the doing of the dance should be what you love, not the work that comes with the doing of the dance. That's where I think the fun comes from.
Yeah. I feel like we keep going and going and going. I remember I hit a peak like really early on in my career, and literally I went, "Oh, I'm here," and then I went, "Now what?" And that "now what" thing was frightening, because it's not that I was trying to. Well, I was trying to get there because I wanted to get to this certain place, but then when I got there, it happened so soon. And yeah, immediately after I had the feeling, what next? And my logical thing, the logical thing was like, oh, well, you go to LA now, you go overseas, right? But obviously I was like, well, that's just a checkbox, and that's a tick box, and that's just the thing that you're meant to do. I was like, that's not where I am, in my life, kind of thing. But that still didn't change the fact that I had this now what? You know what I mean? But I think this is where we're going right back to what you were saying, how you're like, if you have that thing that you're building upon that is your own sort of like self-fulfilling sort of kind of thing, perhaps that's where maybe you can find that happy balance between that corporate, financial, commercial, performing, and then, passion, expression, or whatever you want to call it, that nurturing thing, you know what I mean? That happy median. Yeah, maybe, but I think to get to that point, perhaps you might have to be really, I feel like you got to be really good.
Yeah. I mean, that comes back to the thing about the washing one hand with the other. Is like, I think you still, and this actually, you asking before, what's the thing that I would leave with someone? So this whole idea of like becoming really good at making your product really good. So being really good at that, right? And I know that sounds so obvious, but I think people miss that. They're trying to cheat their way in. If I have really good headshots and I look amazing, and I impress this right person, like they're trying to navigate around something to kind of like con their way in. And it's like, well, they just work so hard at getting really, really good at what you do. And that doesn't look like I went to 2 classes this week. For me, I think the thing that musicians seem to understand a lot better than dancers is practice. Like that's every period that I've done, and I've done bunches of them over my lifetime, and I've gone, I'm really practicing hard. I have made these massive gains, and you feel so fulfilled from it. And practice to me looks like not in class, doing something and trying to get better at it. That's like the time away from others and doing it yourself. I think there's a really important thing of like self-direction, because the practice, when you're practicing by yourself, you're self-directing and you're getting better at it and understanding it from you, as opposed to someone telling you how to do something. So you're sort of deriving the knowledge from yourself. And I think that's really important. And then, I mean, the other thing is just hours of doing the thing that you want to be good at. You're building more and more hours. And I think that's something inadvertently that we did when we're having big nights and partying and then dancing in front of the mirrors. So that was practice essentially as well. Like we were doing June Comato's combinations and Shauna Bristow and stuff like that. It made us better because we were practicing. So it and especially with tap, it's just, I think, a must. You have to be practicing. Like, go and do your 3 classes every week, and then like I would just take those combinations and go and smash it in front of the mirror for even just half an hour. Half an hour 3 times a week or something would make you heaps better. Like, organize with the studio that you teach at. Can I stay for half an hour after the class or before the class or something? Like that would be something I'd part with people, is like the power of practice. I think you did it.
Very, very, very wise.
You doing it.
What? When?
I can remember you doing the square division gig for Sneaky Sound System. And there was like, I feel like at the time it was like probably when the first really big bookings for you, because it was just you and one other person, I think, and they had you doing it. And I remember they taught you a crazy amount of routines, and you were just at home like practicing them, because there's just such a large volume of stuff. You kind of had to practice outside the rehearsals to get everything. And I remember seeing you practice, like, oh, I should practice after gigs, you know, I should do that too. But
What?
yeah,
but Tommy, I was practicing after gigs because I like didn't have it properly.
yeah, but
I needed to get it. Otherwise, I'll get fired.
I didn't have it properly either, and I expected that when we went into the room that, you know, I would go and then we rehearse it and then I'd practice it and get better. But I was just stupid. I was like not doing it. I was like, yeah, totally go and practice it. Like, because then you'll look better on stage. They'll look at your product after, and you'll go. And I know there's a whole conversation to be had around, well, shouldn't they be paying for more rehearsals so that you can actually get it in the allotted time? But that's a separate discussion. Like, if you always primarily make the work look amazing. Practice to make sure you had the stuff.
Well, but I think that's I owe a lot to the Square Division in that sense, though, because they kind of really made me into the dancer I feel like I am today through that, in that period of time, because of their work ethic and their level of product that they you know required from us. So it was like it was good because I was happy to do that work to get better. And so yeah, but yeah, I didn't see any other way around it. Because if
you hadn't known what you were doing, it just wouldn't have gone well.
What's that?
If you hadn't have known what you were doing, then it wouldn't have gone down well. But
mate,
I feel like I would make mistakes in gigs because I just wasn't practicing outside, and it wasn't that I was lazy either. It was just I just hadn't thought of it. Oh, I should go and just take me some practice, make sure I got it by next call.
Well, can I tell you what? Oh, you were actually on the same job.
Which one? Yeah.
You're on the same job.
Oh, not the sneaky. No, this is not.
No. No. I'm talking about something.
The Sneaky Sound System gig, and I think you were doing the.
No. This story that I'm about to tell you is I learned really quickly, and you were on this job with me. I don't want to mention the name of the gigs, but it was live. We had one shot, and one of the dancers messed up, and I remember having a conversation about it, like not like, oh my god, did you see that or anything like that. It was just like, you know, it was a thing, right? Because it was obvious. And I just remember that them saying like, yeah, like, you know, I didn't see them again.
Yeah, right.
I didn't see them again on the gig. And no, but that was me fresh into the industry. So I had I had a couple of major things that happened around me that I learned real quick.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
No, but there was no room for error. I learned that real quick. And I sat there going, I was like, oh wow, that's so brutal. But then I was like, that's the game. That's the industry. This is the business. I have to do that. Otherwise, I'm not going to get booked again. Yeah. And so there was this huge thing of being like, I have to. And I think that was a good lesson that I learned really early on in my career. And I'm going right back, even when it came to like looking good physically. I'll never forget, man, the choreographer coming down the line of boys, I've already got the job, but like we were going through for costumes, and they were like lifting up our shirts to see, you know, who could be, you know, shirtless. And I just came off like, you know, I was in shape. Well, I thought I was in shape. I remember they walked past and they lifted my shirt up and they're like that. And I was like, I'm like, I thought I was good enough. And I went, I was like, there's a standard here. Yeah. And I went, I want to be on that standard because if there's ever an opportunity, I don't want them to say no to me because of that. So I went, yeah, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna start taking care of that that aspect. But yeah, I forget what we were talking about. What were we talking about here?
Sorry, yeah. So getting it for film.
No. That was way back. No, I kind of came off on what you were saying just then about
Yeah, we
like
were on the same job. Oh yeah, losing the gig because you made a mistake, sort of thing.
you know, practicing. You were talking about practicing, Tommy.
Practice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's an untapped resource. You know, I think that should be in your arsenal that you're doing every week. Yeah, it's time to make yourself better and literally make yourself, like you make yourself better, as opposed to like class where you go and you get information. You're putting that information into practice as well in that session. And for that, it's just, I mean, you have to. It's yeah, to be all in.
I feel like you really have something that you want to share or say or just weigh in on, like when it comes to specifically tap. You know, I'm getting that vibe. Is there something? No, no. You know, you're a freaking guru in this space, man, and no one knows this as best as you do. Like, is there something that, you know, you feel like, oh, this is like at the very forefront of knowledge here right now that needs to be known or shared or with the world? You know, I don't know. With tap, that's such a broad question, but because we haven't really spoken about tap specifically, you know, we have been focusing on, you know, kind of the professional side.
Yeah, I suppose you know, tap has been waning a little bit in Australia, which is a real shame because and by waning I mean it's like there's just not many kids that are taking it up and not taking it up seriously anyway. We've sort of started to see it in dance studio land. It's been seen as just a bit of like, you know, you do kind of technical stuff at the bar, just, you know, a bunch of flaps and shuffles, and it doesn't get more meaningful than that. But you know, I would love to see it appreciated more, but I don't think I'm fully in control of that. You know, I think, again, coming back to this idea of peaks and troughs, like it's popular, something happens, it's popular, and then it goes through these lulls, and that's just the way it is. And yeah, I mean, I suppose the only other thing we talk a lot about acknowledging tap as an African American art form. When the big big moment for me is when it clicks, it really clicks. You're like, oh, I get it, because I knew that previously, but you know, it wasn't until later, maybe 26, 27, when that really clicked in my brain, and I had it's when people are sort of claiming, oh, we've got our own style of tap. It's sort of like saying, you know, if you took something like flamenco and going like, oh, we've got our own, you know, insert nationality here version of flamenco. It doesn't, and it's just sort of silly in a sense because it's a cultural dance. The same way, tap is a cultural dance from America, from the African American culture there. And so I think in the space of tap, it's important to acknowledge that's what's there, because traditionally it's been stolen all the time, and serves other people's purposes. So, well, maybe kind of like stolen is the wrong word, but you know, it's been misrepresented. Yeah. It's not really my place to talk about. Like you said, guru. I cringe at that word a little bit because
I know it's bad.
It's tap and hierarchy. Like I think there is, you know, we have. It has such a rich history, and there are people that are quite close to the people that were, you know, influential and massive in the 30s and 40s, who those big tap masters, they're kind of the hoofers and the legends. We have people that have learned from them around today. And so as far as my beliefs go, I look up to them and try and learn from them. From cultural perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I feel like if you really start to sort of look into the origins, man, I'm now interested to see it, but I feel like, yeah, you would kind of learn so much from it if you just go into like the origins. And I don't know why. I thought like maybe it came from like a form of like Irish dancing or something that maybe kind of like evolved, or I don't know. I really had no idea. And yeah, this is a space I have no idea about, of like the
kind of, like it opens a can of worms when you go into this kind of conversation. There's a lot of people who are very opinionated about, what tap is, and then there's other people who actually know what they're talking about, and they often think very differently. So there's a bit of a what they call a Eurocentric vision of what tap is, and so I suppose in my belief system, I'm always trying to throw people's attention more towards the African American cultural beginnings of tap dance, and I think it's really important. And for me, I had a big click, I get it moment, and it's sort of since then I'm like, okay, I get this now, and I get why it's important. And again, I'm still a learning, I'm still learning about this stuff, how to express it, how to communicate it, all of the and the information. I'm by no means like a historian on it. I do the best that I can, and especially out here in Australia, where there aren't so many people that think about it in these terms. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely one of those people. I've never thought about much about the origins of the movements that I'm doing, but when I hear you talking about it, that's fascinating and makes me more interested and eager to know, what it is that I'm learning, kind of thing. But going back to sort of like, the students in the rooms, and you just kind of feel like here in Australia, just that space is just sort of like, all right, it's just some exercise that we tap in that. Richie sort of was kind of saying that when he was, when you guys growing up, like you got to like be inspired, and you saw these jobs like the tap dogs, right? And you had something to sort of be like, I want to do that kind of thing. Do you feel like maybe now it's your guys' turn to now give that into, you know what I mean, the opportunity for these young cats to come watch and go, oh yeah, I want to do that. You know what I mean?
And that's where I go, am I failing the next generation? Because it just hasn't been picked up. And I think Tap Dogs is so remarkable in the amount of inspiration that it gave to kids in Australia to pick up tap dancing. I watched it as a kid. I just, I loved it and just wanted to do that. So I want to put more. That's why I'm trying to create more tap tap prod things. Oh my god, I've lost my talking now. I'm always trying to create more tap work, and but I am, to an extent, I don't want to have to compromise what I find inspiring and what is important to me and what I think is great tap dancing, to pull people in to interest them in it, which I don't know, maybe that sounds selfish. Maybe I should be doing more that kind of gets young, I don't know, lends itself to making young kids more interested in tap or something. I don't even know what that would be, because I think, to be honest with myself, I've gone, I have to present tap in the way that I want to. That's the only way I can sort of be honest to myself. and I think I've tried that in the past. You know, like I'll play some pop music for, you know, stuff down the room, and I still kind of do that, but I'm kind of going away from that because I'm like, oh well, I'm just being inauthentic. Maybe people will gravitate more towards authenticity anyway. So
couldn't agree more, and I think you're doing absolutely like a phenomenal job in that space. And we, like I said, like in the very beginning, we need people like you, you know, here in that space to do this and to think about this and to even, you know, consider these, you know, new next up and coming generations and stuff like that. But it sounds like it's maybe to do with more so commercializing what it is that you're doing. You know what I mean? Because what you're doing is freaking brilliant. But maybe it's about that. It's just that possibly, I don't know. I'm just hearing what you're saying, and I'm like, maybe, maybe it's just something that I don't know. I can't think right now, but that kind of came into my mind. But
I had a thought the other day too. I was like, maybe any pursuit of making it more popular is silly anyway. Maybe I don't want it to be popular. Like if everyone was, you know, if it was the most popular thing in the world right now, great. But it's,
gotcha.
I don't know. Who cares? Who cares how popular it is? That doesn't say anything about the quality of what you're doing. You know, yeah. So I don't know. I am also having that thought where I'm like, maybe this pursuit of trying to get heaps of people into it. Maybe that's not the
no.
Maybe that it should just be a byproduct of me doing good work. There should be people that are interested. Yeah.
No, 100%. I think maybe I worded that wrong.
No. I only had that thought because I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, maybe I like it is a bit niche, you know?
No, I totally agree with you, man. I feel like when you start to try to chase that in itself of like, if the goal is just to make it popular, then you lose that.
Yeah.
You lose that, man. But if it's like, if the intention is to like, no, you're right. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be tapping into that space because that's when you start to lose your soul, man. I feel.
Yeah,
you know I feel like
I've always said something that everybody likes is something that no one loves, and so I think, you know, mass appeal. I mean, I don't know if that statement fully holds up too much.
I know, but then I think about MJ.
Yeah. I mean, but not everyone loves MJ. Some people hate MJ, you know. But
some.
Yeah. But
he's on a big scale.
He has mass appeal. Yeah, I mean, and Taylor Swift, like everyone loves that. But
yeah. Each their own. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Beyonce and
It's not.
I think look.
Important that it's popular. What I suppose more what I'm trying to get to as well is just have a really healthy influx of young people taking it up still, and maybe I am concerned about there being a real lack of that. I also, there is a culture out there here of people sort of saying, "Oh, you can't just tap. You can't just tap. You got to do everything. Like this, you can't just tap. What are you going to do? There's no work in that." And I go, "What?
Right.
So you can work in commercial contemporary. What jobs are there in that? Like, I know there are people doing that, but like, there's the same amount of jobs. Like, it doesn't. You know, I don't really. There's a false equivalency there because it's like I don't know. You see, on one hand, you're like, oh, there's no work in that, but then what you're professing that you do is also there's not really that much work in it. So I say, do what you love. If you love tap, be awesome at it. Like, do that.
Mate, yes, 1,000%. I think you got to do what you love, and I think you also got to figure out too quickly what it is that you're good at, as well. Like we all like, look, me for example, I love like today's like hip hop, man. I can't move like that.
Yeah.
I know I can't as much as I want to, and I would love to. I need to be real with myself in this part of my career and be like, what comes to me naturally is hitting the accents at the very the front of the beat. You know, high intensity, just really taking my body to that level. And for me, like kind of commercial jazz or whatever it is, commercial dance, it's the thing that I it's just more natural to me. And I've been fighting that, man. I've been fighting that. And, because I was like, I don't want to go back and do it. But I'm like, my body's doing this, so I got to listen to that too, right? So, but it's. I love hearing how there is such a variety of people out there to have all these different avenues and spaces, and I think we just need the right people to direct them, or just the right enough, right knowledge and information, just to be like, hey, you know what, like that's not all there is. You can do all this other stuff which I haven't really figured out, but like but it's definitely not just one way. I don't think, but oh, I think we've cut out there again. My battery's running low. Am I there? Are you there?
Yeah, no, you're still there. But we should probably wrap it up, hey?
I think so. 2 hours. We've been going for like 2 hours.
I could still talk so many things, It's amazing. Now I know why podcasts are running so long, when I am a listener of lots of podcasts, and I know why they run so long.
Well, Tommy, if you feel, because look, I was just kind of felt bad for like taking up so much of your time, but if you feel like you can keep going about things, then for sure.
I should go.
You should go? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, it's all good. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up, and I think we've covered a lot. We've covered so much, and it's good that you feel that you still have so much to share as well, because people need it. I think the dancers really need it, man. I feel like there's a bit of misguidedness that's happening as well because of other factors in this world. We get drawn to certain things, but anyways, I'm gonna get myself started again. So I'm gonna end it here. But hey, Tommy, man, thank you so much. Like, you're one of the very few people that I consider as my friend, and in this industry, I think it's really hard to be able to find actual friends, and I'm so glad that I have you as that, and to be able to, it's to see you do what you do, man. It gets me amped up as well. So thank you, and thank you for sharing everything that you have today.
No, thank you, and I feel the same, Chris. So, yeah.
All right, mate.
All right.
I'm going to press pause. Ciao, ciao.